Hello, bird nerds, habitat gardeners, wildlife uh, friends. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Saturday morning's rolled around again. We're now in Eastern Standard Time. So uh, I hope you've enjoyed catching up on just a little bit more sleep. Um, Now, folks, today, um, hello, by the way. Uh, I'm Grant. I'm a horticulturist. I'm also a bird nerd. And so I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on a Saturday morning before you go out gardening um, about anything gardening. We're not limited here. But what I wanted to talk to you or talk with you about today is, and I've just decided to do this on the fly this morning um, because I'm really, 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 really annoyed by what I saw in the in the Guardian today, and it's something that I've been saying for a long, long, long time that we're doing a really crappy job at protecting um, protecting habitat for um, for birds, wildlife generally, but in particular koalas. So this article, and I'm really sorry, it's election time, and we've got to be political again. Um, but this is what has got my blood boiling: is that um, how do we get that up there? There we are. There we are. There we are. Yep. Nearly 2 million hectares of koala habitat bulldozed since 2011, and in that time we're supposed to have had all sorts of policies in place to protect koala habitat, but it never stops. And a government was elected in New South Wales running on a policy of proclaiming a great koala national park, and that hasn't happened. And uh, we just seem to be always going back to how do we as individuals make a difference? Now, while I think we can make small differences, I don't think we can solve the bigger problem. But today I do want to try and be a little bit positive and explore the idea of bringing or providing a safe place for animals such as koalas, possums, gliders. And look, let's talk about fruit bats and other bats, microbats, to live in your place and by extension your suburb. Can we start, if you don't mind? Can we start with people popping in and letting me know where you're from? Uh, Hi YouTube, hi Twitch. Um, if you can let us know where you're from, and we can maybe talk about the particular animals that might be living in your location. Well, let's uh, Stan. Stan from Kangaroo Island. Gee, I'm going to need my glasses on. I can't even read your comment there, Stan. Let's how are you, Stan? Koalas a vexed issue on the island. We have too many, apparently. Yeah, well, um, perhaps so, but you've got too many because you don't have enough trees, right? You don't have enough places for them to live. That's why you've got too many. Um, I think we need to really fine tune the language that we use when we're talking about these animals. What I thought was interesting and why I wanted to explore this as a topic, rather than just produce a list of plants. How many people would actually welcome possums in their garden? And remember, we've got ringtail possums, we've got brush-tail possums, we've got gliders, and then what about other mammals like padymelons, antechinus, all these kind of things that people have misidentified in a lot of cases as mice. And people will try and exclude any of those animals. A lot of our native mammals are burrowers, and people don't want that. So I really wanted to have a bit of a conversation about what would you be prepared to put up with in your garden to create a safe haven for these animals. And we have to move a little bit past the idea of just providing food trees, because these animals move around, and they generally koalas are a little bit different in that they will rest in the open, like just on a fork, on a tree. Now here's the vexed issue, isn't it, Stan? The numbers exploded in the blue gum plantations. Now they're removing the gum plantations. On the mainland, I think the answer is to build more apartments and less suburbs. Well, keep that up. I partly agree with that. I think we certainly need to be building more apartments and lessening the spread. But the main issue for these animals is that we're destroying their habitat at such unbelievable rates. I mean, let's just have a look at the numbers in this article. Now, remember, koalas have been a threatened species since 2011. In Queensland and New South Wales, which is where the koalas have been listed as at risk of extinction, 1,964,200 hectares of koala habitat were cleared up until 2021. Now, let's come to the amounts. So there's 10 times more clearing than the amount that is proposed for the Great Koala National Park in New South Wales. But 81% of all of that land cleared, that habitat that's suitable for koala. And remember, if there's koalas living there, there are possums living there. There are all sorts of birds living there. There are bats living there. There are padymelons. There are kangaroos. There are antechinus. There are echidnas living there. 3/4 of the lost forest is estimated to have been cleared for agriculture. So we need to just stop beating around the bush. And we need to... I was watching a news segment this morning on the ABC where they were talking about... I can't even remember the bullshit they were talking about, but they had a reporter out at a field day in East Gippsland, and while he was standing there talking at a field day, they were running these stills of farmers and the land. Oh, it was about farmers welcoming the rainfall that they've been getting in the last little while, and that's what's forecast for the next couple of weeks. And all the stills they were showing, and they're talking about, was supposedly this beautiful farmland habitat. And one shot was just all of these a cleared paddock with one tree, the standard that is used in a lot of places, where they've left one large eucalypt for a bit of shade for the cattle or the sheep. The rest cleared, and some grasses, but weeds, thistles, everywhere. So the idea that these people are stewards of their land is bullshit. We need to call it out. 81% of the cleared habitat lost in Queensland was for agriculture, to create cattle pasture and crop fields. 13% forestry, 5% for infrastructure. Now, I reckon that's where we can start talking. Widening roads, clearing for upgraded power lines if needed, and hopefully those power lines are for renewable energy. Maybe widening fire breaks. I mean, that 5% I think we all need to talk about. Just 4% of the 81 just 4% of the total is because of fire, bushfire and drought. Nearly all of the forest destruction occurred on a small scale that did not require consideration under federal environment laws. Less than 2% of the of the nearly 2 million hectares required approval by the federal minister. So we just need to stop. In my view, we just need to stop giving these people cover. I went on a bit of a rant on, I can't remember which social media it was recently, where a company was being prosecuted, and I think it was The Guardian. Or it may have been Yahoo, because Yahoo have been doing good environmental reporting recently. God, look at these bloody ads mucking up this page. So sick of ads on websites too. And they kept referring to the company. And I just said, look, it's time. This is my view. It's time that we stop just talking about the company. The company has directors, it has shareholders, it has owners, it has managers. Those actual people employed the person who drove the bulldozers to do the clearing. We need to start calling these people out, because if you're a protester and you're trying to stop the destruction in a forest, you get named and shamed. You get put on the front page of the papers. You get put on the news. You get called an eco-terrorist. But the real eco-terrorists are the people who are the leaseholders of these agricultural properties, or the owners if they are privately owned. They are the owners of these agricultural companies. They are the managers of these stations. They are the operators of the heavy machinery who do this work, this destruction. And I think it's time that the media, they have the resources to do the company searches and to detail who these people are. That's my view. It's just way too late. So, Stan, thank you for your next comment. We also need to stop ag clearing and subsidised wood chipping. Yeah. Now, here's another thing where we get led down the garden path. And I'm sorry I'm being so political in the gardening show today. And we'll get to gardening. We'll get to the trees and the plants. But you probably all know the kinds of things I'm going to say in what a garden needs. But the problem is agriculture. But we're led down the garden path. And indeed, I promote it too, that the suburban sprawl is the main problem. No, the suburban sprawl is the main problem near where I live. But generally, not only in Australia, worldwide, it is clearing for agriculture and forestry that are the major sources of habitat loss for this class of animal. So, Stan, question for you. Question for you. Would you welcome possums in your garden, taking up residence in your garden? And if we extend it a little bit further, what about uh, other burrowing animals? Or what about, you're unlikely to have fruit bats, but what if you had fruit bats and they were roosting and they were shitting on your path or something like that? I mean, have you shifted so much in your view that you would welcome the, maybe the unpleasant parts of having animals in your garden along with the pleasant part? Everyone likes to see nice birds in their garden. But how many people complain about possums on the roof? Or, I mean, I had a neighbour who, when I lived in Gippsland, who used to complain that the echidnas would dig under her fence. And they would. To get from one place to another, they would dig under her fence. And she was very, very upset about it. I proposed that she buy some really large agricultural drainage that she could create a tunnel for them to just get under, but she wasn't having that. She thought that would ruin the integrity of her boundary fence. Perhaps that's a fair point of view. I don't know. But there's a question for you, Stan. Would you welcome possums if you were having them running across your roof and maybe getting into your roof space if you haven't had it blocked off? Or fruit bats is the other thing. Oh, I mean, we even have this issue with birds roosting and pooping on paths. But are we at that? Are we at that? Are we at that point? I don't know. All right. What I am going to do now is I'm going to share the Australian Koala Foundation food trees. There are a couple of interesting things to note about trees for koalas. There are 88 tree species across New South Wales, South Australia, Victoria, and Queensland. But there are 3, this is according to the Australian Koala Foundation, 3 main factors that you need to consider if you are wanting to encourage koalas. Areas where rainfall is above 500 millimetres per year, except the Murray and Barling rivers. Less than 1,000 metres above sea level. So they are not a high altitudinal species. And areas where maximum daily temperature does not exceed 40 degrees Celsius for more than a few days. Now, Stan, how often does it get over 40 degrees on Kangaroo Island? I would have thought it would be maybe a handful of days a year. I guess if it's not over 40 for a few days in a row, it would be all right. Um, there's actually a lot of good information here. I really need to do a probably need to do where's the tree list? There we go. What's this here? All right, yes, we're getting to the tree list. Sorry. Folks, just taking a little bit while. Oh, it's a PDF, that's why. PDF. Here it comes. Here it comes. That can't be right. 267 pages. It is. Oh my goodness. Let's get through all the. Oh, that's all different councils. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Uh, well, let's go, Stan. What's your council name, Stan? Uh, well, I've got to find it. You would be in South Australia. Let's see if I can find yours, Stan. Still New South Wales there. Still New South Wales. Oh, I haven't added it to the scene, have I? Oh, so folks. So, very annoying what it does nowadays. Okay, there we go. New South Wales. Let me, since I know Stan's here, let's keep going and find. There's a good list because it's got all of the local gums that habitat that koalas can utilise in by Shire, Queensland. Look at that. South Australia. Okay, which one are you in, Stan? Uh, Victor Harbour, Unley. Oh, okay, Stan points out, yeah, only a handful of days over 40, but we do get mid to high 30s, so it doesn't rain all summer. It's getting dry. Yeah. What's your council there, Stan? Um, I know it's not Unley. Would it be Victor Harbour? Is that close to you? Not Coorong, not Robe. That's the other. Oh, here we are. Kangaroo Island Council. Okay, so you've got the river red gum, Eucalyptus cameldulensis, subspecies cameldulensis, globulus subspecies globulus, the Tasmanian or southern blue gum. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Eucalyptus leucoxylon, subspecies leucoxylon, and subspecies megalocarpa. Uh, they're rippers, both of those two. And the Eucalyptus viminalis subspecies signatensis, the rough bark manna gum. I would imagine that one and the Eucalyptus leucoxylon subspecies leucoxylon would be the best of the garden suitable plants in your area. So Stan, that big question. Would you welcome in possums into your garden? I know some people don't like the koalas as well because the koalas can make an awful lot of noise in mating season, and if the males run into each other, and the noises, if you've never heard a uh, koalas having disagreements in the middle of the night, it can be quite terrifying. They're very, very loud, very, very scary grunts. And, so that is the question for Stan. What does a koala need? A koala needs food. It needs shelter. Um, Contrary to popular belief, uh, koalas do like access to water, even though they don't need it every day, but they do like to have it available. So having some water at ground level is good. But the main thing is the safety. So they need to be able to get from place to place, from tree to tree, um, from patch of bush, patch of bush, without being interfered with, attacked by dogs and other likely predators. And that's where it can be tricky. So you need to be able to have your canopies, your planting your trees, so that canopies will interlock, so that a koala or a possum or a glider can get from one safe place to another safe place without having to come down to the ground. But if they do need to come down to the ground, that they are not going to encounter dogs mostly. But for smaller animals, small possums, gliders, cats obviously as well. Of course, cats will take young marsupials as well. So you need to either contain your pets or not have any, or have mechanisms so that these animals can move from one, whether it be a feeding space. Stan, here we go. Stan says, I love my neighbourhood koala. Well, hopefully you've got neighbourhood koalas. You're probably only just seeing one, but hopefully you've got lots. I love the occasional possum, but they don't eat my veggies for some reason. People outside town need to fence their veggies because of the possums, wallabies, etc. Yeah, um, yeah, they probably do. But the other way of looking at that is why are they coming in to eat the veggies? Is it because the food sources where they generally hang out are not sufficient? And often that would be the case. Remember, wallabies particularly, they like to browse on fresh shoots. So if there isn't any fresh shoots in the grasses around the place, well then veggies are very soft and tender and completely appetizing. So as things like cultural burning don't happen, then we're not getting those fresh green shoots in new areas of native grass pasture. It's a very complicated thing to do, to work these things out. So, forgive me being I'm really flat today because I was flabbergasted at the amount of habitat that has been lost and continues to be lost when we are supposed to be protecting them. Oh, Stan, you're coming in with another one. Great. We're having unprecedented drought. So animals, humans, struggling. Yeah. So So that comes down to the other point about what people can do to help, and that is to for the animals and plants in your garden is to provide water. Um, the safest place for animals is to get water up somehow in the trees. So the forks that may hold water, hollows that may hold water, but most animals are going to have to come down to ground level to drink. So I know we've talked about it or I've mentioned it many times before in habitat gardening conversations, is that you can leave water out in bowls, in uh, plant sources. You can dig little depressions. You can make a little pond. You can have a little pond in little pots. Have a little water garden. Have a little water feature. All these things will help, particularly if you're in an area of Australia like Stan is on Kangaroo Island, where it is unprecedented drought. Well, unprecedented in our history. Probably been very dry times before. Now, native animals and birds are adapted to that, but we have taken away or changed the access to water on the ground for so many of these animals. So, in a home context or in a municipal context, we can provide water for them. Of course, the usual conditions apply. The water vessels have to be cleaned regularly. If you can provide some little water feature with some sort of running water, that is ideal. That will reduce your potential of having, insects like mosquitoes. That's what everyone's always worried about with the water feature, having mosquito larvae growing in them. So you can do that. That's a whole nother subject. But you can buy little pre-made water features if you want to. You can buy a little 3-tier pond, fiberglass pond set, and set it up in your garden. There's so many easy ways now to provide water. The other key, and Stan saying they're in unprecedented drought, so animals and humans are struggling, but so are the plants. So that comes back to how you apply water efficiently and effectively. Subsurface is best if you can. Drip tube, leaky hose, all those kind of things. But mulching is really, really important, and making sure that your soils do not become hydrophobic. Hydrophobic is that condition when your soil has dried out so much that the soil within the structure, the chemical structure within the soil changes because of the total lack of water, of H2O molecules. That what remains there is actually repels water. The chemical bonds repel water. So mulching is sort of the most important thing you can do. I'm sure if people are popping into this, they're probably thinking, "Oh, tell us about all the food trees and tell us about the plants that the honey glider and everything will feed on." The plants are the easy bit. The plants are the easy bit. Creating a safe place for these animals, because if you invite them in and they want to stay, you need to give them somewhere safe. So we've really only hit water. And the next two things, and we've talked about making sure that they're safe from your pets or your neighbour's pets or any strays that are in the area. So dogs, cats, foxes much less so, dogs and cats mostly. So the animals need to be able to get from place to place unimpeded, unhindered by pets. When we're talking about koalas, we also need to think about roads. And this is really hard in the country because when we're clearing for fire safety, we generally don't have any opportunities for animals to get from one patch of vegetation on one side of a road to another by just using vegetation. We don't allow the canopies to interlock, to directly connect in any way. So roads are a big problem. That's just beyond the scope of the home gardener, for sure. But perhaps one of the reasons why, if you can create habitat between you and your neighbours, large enough patch of habitat, the food resources, the necessary shelter, the water, within a number of suburban blocks that are safe enough for koalas, possums to live, that they don't need to cross roads regularly. They will cross roads. You can't really stop them. They will cross roads. But if you can join with your neighbours, your friends, your people you don't know, it's one of the reasons why I'm growing plants myself, sort of to give out to people, locally, to try and encourage, to just replace what's being lost at a horrendous rate around my place. But then again, they're going to take 15, 20 years to grow. So all of those animals will have left by the time any of the things that I do individually take effect. The hope we have to have is that there will be animals left to come back if we provide some new habitat and that we don't destroy what's already there. Yeah. So not many questions today. Sandy, you got any comments? Any questions? I feel like I'm such a downer after having seen this article, and I'm still super depressed. Not super depressed. That's wrong. Discouraged by all of the news that's been clogging up for the last 2 weeks, and we're just not seeing any environment stuff. Although the Juice Media did put out a corker of a real government ad about salmon farming, if you haven't seen it. I'll come back on later on today to do a bit more of a rundown of my thoughts on how the election campaign is going and what's not getting covered and what is getting covered. So yes, folks, I'm just wondering if you've got any questions. Hit me with a horticulture question. Get me off this horrible topic, because yeah, I will, if people have got a Stan, yeah, good, interesting times for sure. One positive is the latest polls in Australia. Yeah, I think you're right. I'm still not going to start feeling super positive. Maybe for another week or so, because there's still plenty of time for the billionaires that line up. I mean, you've got Palmer. Palmer still. It's really interesting that each of the major parties have spent I think they're talking about $1 billion on advertising. I think it was $1 billion, or was it $1 million? No, it must have been $1 million. It must have been about $1 million each so far. But the Trumpet of Patriots had spent 500,000. So so we're talking the majors get about 30%, roughly, vote share each. And I'm putting the Liberals and the Nationals together in there. And the Trumpets get about 1%, and they're spending 50% of the amount on advertising as the majors. And if you look at their advertising, they actually don't have a policy. They have some ideas and they talk about problems, but they don't have any actual solution. None of their ads talks about anything other than the only thing they actually are concrete about is not performing Welcome to Country. Everything else is jingo, and it's annoying. Anyway, another thing you need to really be prepared to provide, I think, if you want koalas, possums, and gliders in your garden, is you need to be providing artificial hollows, or you will have problems with them trying to get access your roof space, because they sleep, not koalas, but the possums sleep in hollows, or ringtails do admittedly make their own dens, but they need the resources to be able to do that. So if you totally clean up your garden from sticks and dead branches and things like that, well, then you deny that resource to those animals too. So tidy is often the absolute enemy of a habitat garden. I know people don't like having not tidy gardens, but that's where a gardener is different to a habitat gardener. There are plenty of great gardeners out there who are awful habitat gardeners. Yes, so that's where artificial nest boxes, or just artificial hollows, because they're different shapes and sizes for different animals, need to be available. And it can become either expensive or laborious to provide these things. I guess I'm asking you all to find some space in your heart, but also in your budget, more particularly in your budget and in your effort budget. I mean, acquiring them, placing them, maintaining them, so that if you really do want to bring animals into your garden, that you really consider what they need. The easy bit, in a way, is the food. That's the easy bit. Even though, as I just said, anything that I plant now in my neighbourhood is 10 to 15 to 20 years away from being a replacement for a tree that is being removed this weekend. And I just looked across the park to a house that has just come up for sale where they've been renovating, and today they are cutting out a semi-mature tree out of their front yard. It's just what everyone does now, and it's appalling. In my mind, it's appalling. So we've talked about the nearly 2 million hectares of habitat loss for koalas in 10 years, and now all the suburbs are doing the same thing. So it's a plague. It really is a plague. Find some space in your mind, in your heart, and more particularly in your budget, your monetary budget and your effort budget to provide some safe spaces for our possums, for our bats, for our koalas, and then for our ground living small mammals, the antechinus, the dunner, the paddymmelon, that still live around us in the suburbs. Kangaroos are slightly different. They're less likely to encourage. Although I did see a grey kangaroo not terribly long ago in our linear park in St Albans, not in any of the streets around here, but in the long linear park. So I don't know whether that's a good sign or whether it's a bad sign. I don't know if it's because their numbers are increasing and they're spreading outwards, or if they're just being displaced from other places and are moving along the linear park and more into these denser suburban areas because they're being displaced from further away. I don't know. Yes, okay. Back to questions or comments. Questions or comments. Let's try and do something positive. I don't know whether it's worthwhile me putting a list together because the Australian Koala Foundation, Koala Clancy, there's so many groups that have excellent lists out there for koala food trees, and that that's up on the screen now, which is from the Australian Koala Foundation, has the plants in municipalities in the states where koalas live that are recommended and are available. So I think that would be my thought. Just Australian Koala Foundation, uh, which is savethekoala.com. Savethekoala.com. Let me put a banner up for that. And oh, look at that. That's terrible. Terrible. There we go. Savethekoala.com. Now, when it comes to the gliders, a lot of the gliders and the nectar feeding possums, well, even the nectar feeding possums are only nectar feeding partly. They're omnivorous. They will eat insects. They will lick at manna, at sap, uh, devour lerp scale, and things like that. So you need to provide a diverse um, a variety of trees and plants, browsing opportunities for them. But obviously, the big floriferous flowers, the banksias, the waratahs, isopogons, all those kind of plants are great for the nectar feeding possums and gliders, but you do need to provide a lot more variety. Yeah. Well, we'll just see if anyone else has got another comment or a question. I really hope I'm in a better mood next week. been very, very, from my point of view, annoying. My blood boils when I'm still seeing people getting on the TV during the election campaign talking about some kind of environmental issue, but they're always skirting the main issue, which is this issue of habitat loss. Um, and I don't know what we can do about it. I do not know what we can do about it. I think this issue of so many people who get the gig to get on the mass consumption media are as compromised as compromised as most politicians are now, that they have to look out for where their money is coming from. But that's another issue, isn't it? So if you want to get some koala food trays, head to savethekoala.com, find your municipality, and they will recommend some of the species. We've got the ones for Stan's municipality, like Kangaroo Island, up there on the screen now. But there are hundreds of municipalities listed. So we will. I'll leave that portion of it there. I want to reiterate again what all of these animals need. They need access to water. They need a safe way to get from wherever they're eating or feeding or sleeping. They need a safe method to get to the next place. So you need to make sure that they don't have to run into your dog. We need to make sure that your cat cannot get up and get the young ones. That's pretty simple, but it's difficult to achieve. That's why I'm saying to you, don't only find room in your heart for this, you need to find room in your budget, your financial budget, and your emotional and energy budget to make a difference. Super serious today. We usually have fun talking about habitat gardening. I'll try and make something fun next week. No, maybe I'll just go back to the tried and true formula. Hey, let's make a list. Talk about a nice list. It's so important not to keep driving this stuff home. So maybe if you're out and about today and you're at a local market or a local fair and you see some kind of nest box that someone's made, maybe buy one, put it up, maybe enlarge the opening so it's not just for a small bird. Maybe make it so that a larger animal can get in and use it. If you see some Indigenous tube stock being sold at a local community market, buy some, plant some, take a punt, and make a difference. Thanks, Stan, for your input today. Hopefully we'll get some more comments next week. I'll try and be a bit more enthusiastic about things because we need it, or I need it, and I really hope that we get some environmental. There was some good news. No, I'll save that good news for the stream that I'll do later on. So there was some good news coming out of New Zealand. Marginally good news coming out of New Zealand. All right, folks, I'm Grant. I'm a horticulturist. This has been Habitat Gardening. Do make sure you are subscribed or following the Bird Emergency on either Facebook or... we've got another comment. Thanks, Stan. Keep up the good work and keep spreading the word. I don't feel like I'm doing any good work at the moment, Stan. I really do feel like that we are completely losing the battle. Um, I, but yeah, I do need to be more invigorated. I took a bit of a break from social media this week because I was just finding myself getting so worked up and so angry, and just realizing that so many of the people that I was interacting with or potentially interacting with were just idiots. So I think we'll go back to trying to talk to the people on our side, and generally, bit by bit, spread outward, and just hopefully, um, looks like Canada are going to make the every little voice count. Well, Stan, see, while I appreciate the sentiment, while I appreciate the sentiment, I'm actually now thinking that I'm not sure it does. I'm not sure it does. Because in 10 years, we've lost 2 million hectares that hasn't been replaced and can't be replaced in a short period of time for habitat, just for koalas. Uh, the solution for the Maugean Gate in Macquarie Harbour is to have a captive breeding program. How much bullshit have we heard about that? The dire wolf this week, where they're talking about, we've de-extincted the dire wolf. No, you haven't. You've gene edited a wolf to make it look like a dire wolf. And where are they going to live? They're going to live in a fenced enclosure. The little voices are being drowned out by bullshit, and nothing positive is changing. We're just tinkering at the edges. Um, I mean, we are not stopping the habitat clearance. We're just not stopping it. And I'm not really sure that the amount of time and effort that someone like me puts into this is making one iota of difference. Um, I mean, and look, to put you, I know I sound like I'm bitching, but I've been doing this for 5 years, I think, talking about birds and habitat and whatnot. I still don't get press releases, media releases from BirdLife Australia, having asked for it many, many, many times. Um, when when there's something coming up, they don't reach out and say, "Hey, would you like to talk to someone? Would you like?" Now that's an organisation that I've tried to promote. The people doing the work, and they can't even find the energy to give me a little heads up or give me an opportunity to be involved in something when something is coming up. So I think that just says a platform as minuscule as mine is just doesn't seem to resonate. I mean, I just wonder whether I would be better off being a gaming streamer and then subversively talking about the environment while at the same time talking about the latest Nintendo Switch 2 or something. I don't know. It really is disheartening, um, especially when I'm not seeing people with big platforms trying to actually affect change. But anyway, Stan, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing because I enjoy catching up with all of you guys, all you folk. Uh, too much. I mean, I really do enjoy that. But as in terms of actually fooling myself or ourselves that we're making a difference, I'm not sure that I can uh, go with that anymore. Oh, hello YouTube. We've got a whole lot more YouTubers popping in at the moment. Good morning. Almost at the end. But here's a question. If you've got a question or a comment that you want to make, we have been talking about providing habitat, food trees. What do animals such as koalas, possums, the gliders, like the sugar glider or honey possums, what do they need in a garden? And I've really talked about providing water, providing safe opportunities for those animals to move from one place to another. So that's making sure that they come down to the ground as little as possible. That is, I think that's the main thing. So I'm not sure the evidence is out there that ropes are a really good way to go about linking tree to tree if you can't have the canopies overlapping, almost touching, or touching. I think we can look. I'll look into that a little bit more in a domestic sense. I haven't seen much of that out there. So I'll keep looking for that. So that's what we've covered. I've said if you want to look for the recommended food trees for koalas in your municipality, savethekoala.com. They do have a really extensive recommendation list for plants for every municipality where you are likely to find koalas in Australia. Even in municipality like Stan's on Kangaroo Island, where there are apparently too many koalas. I'm reluctant to even discuss this idea of moving koalas because I think your koalas were translocated, weren't they, Stan? I know that a lot of places in Australia have koalas that were translocated from somewhere else originally. I don't think that's a really good strategy because it lets people again think that, there's a solution other than stopping the destruction of habitat. It'd be great if you could move koalas from Kangaroo Island if there's too many of them, but wouldn't the best thing be to provide enough resources on Kangaroo Island for the koalas that are already there? But yeah, that's a long-term project, and I don't see any long-term thinking for this stuff. Which makes me really mad because so many of the people who are doing things for like the Australian Koala Foundation, savethekoala.com, are doing volunteer work. All these people are doing volunteer work, but we're not backing them up with the commitment to maximise their efforts. So yeah, keep that in mind as the election comes up. Keep that in mind to do the least damage that you possibly can with your vote. I think that's the best way to put it. Do the least damage you possibly can. So there we are, folks. All right, I am going to wrap it up there. No more questions, no more comments. We'll just stick around for another minute or two, see if anyone else has got another. Oh, here we go. Stan says, thank you, Stan. Oh, I didn't realise that the platypus had been introduced. So yeah, the koalas were introduced onto Kangaroo Island in the 1920s along with platypus. Now, Stan, was that move to introduce koalas to Kangaroo Island, was that to establish an insurance population because we knew that they were in danger as far back as the 1920s? I think they probably were, weren't they? Wait for Stan's answer. There we go. I think we were. I think that was. I think that certainly was the case with some of the translocations in Victoria. And remember, koalas are in danger not only from habitat loss. Koalas also suffer from chlamydia, and I think a lot of islands were seen as a way to isolate those populations from diseases along with calamities such as fires on the mainland. So but putting an introduced species onto an island creates all sorts of other issues. They were obviously unknown, as Stan says. Yeah, they were. They were brought over for conservation purposes. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was the case with French Island in Victoria too. Sorry, just seeing a post on one of the socials. So someone's paying attention on the socials. That's very good. Okay, so there's the practical thing. SaveTheKoala.com. If you are the best impact, the most impact you can have if you want to encourage possums, gliders into your garden is to have somewhere for them to have a den. That means something like a nest box. I know I always talk about Habitat Innovations. They have species-specific shelters, nest boxes for birds, dens, and roosts for animals. Tested, proven to work. So habitatinnovation.com.au if you would like to go and see what you could use in terms of, I'll call them nesting boxes, but they are wildlife shelters, wildlife boxes, wildlife dens, whatever we want to call them. Significant investment, but they work. They get used. Animals use them. So I would encourage you to perhaps look there. But you can find other suitable boxes, shelters. You'll find them at local fairs, fetes, markets. You'll find them online. I mean, there's a couple of really good producers in Queensland. So just think about doing that. Buying a couple of different shapes and sizes so that different animals might use them. We've hardly talked about birds today. I really didn't want. I thought it was important that we broadened it out a little bit today. Oh God, saw some more stuff about swift parrots during the week. Hopefully, we'll have some bird emergency conversations about that in the next little while. So, Stan, thank you so much for your comments this morning. I hope the other regulars are fine. Glenn, Naomi, haven't seen Naomi for a while. Really interesting stuff on the Birdwatch, the Bird ID groups on Facebook recently. So I'll have a bit more to say. I'll be back later in the day, probably after lunch, on the Bird Emergency channel and also on Not Just Another Podcast to talk a bit more about what I'm thinking about the election and New Zealand. I want to talk about New Zealand. Also want to talk about how the Canadian Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, is a bit of a superstar and how he, along with some of our other allies, forced Donald Trump to change tack, and I'm starting to have a love affair with Canada. I thought it was a very, very cool story. You may not know about it. If you don't know about it, keep an eye out. Maybe I'm thinking about 1:30, maybe 2 o'clock today. I'll be back to share those thoughts. In the meantime, I'm Grant. I'm a horticulturist. This has been Habitat Gardening. Spare a thought and spare some dollars, spare some energy in your budget, your economic budget, your energy budget, your empathy budget for the creatures, the native creatures that live around you, whether you are in Africa, whether you're in Australia, whether you're north of the Wallace Line or south of the Wallace Line in Southeast Asia, wherever you are, Trump land, you're going to need it. You guys are going to need a lot of wildlife empathy as your forests come crashing down. Good luck. I'm Grant. This has been Habitat Gardening on the Bird Emergency. See you later. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you, Stan. See ya.